Wow, I think we all need 8 seconds to take in. What a wonderful introduction. Thanks, Joshua, for my presentation. I think I can make a similar argument that agriculture and the way that we do agriculture, the way that we have decided to eat, actually has an enormous effect on shaping our communities as well. And I was thinking about, as Joshua was speaking, I was remembering how much economics has driven agricultural education and research over the last 100 years, and so many of the challenges or weaknesses in economics I also see in agricultural education and research as well. So I think there's a lot of entwining going on there. But anyway, thanks for that quite impressive discussion of all the ills. I'm going to let Joshua handle many of the challenges that we face, and agriculture has caused similar sorts of challenges to the earth and to people. But I just wanted to start here with pointing out that you've heard a lot today about unprecedented challenges, about crisis, and I think that this image this is called a safe operating space, created by the Resilience Center in Stockholm, really captures a fundamental truth about where we are right now in our development as a species. There is no question that we are changing the earth. We are changing major global processes that support life on earth. And there's also no question that agriculture is a big driver of this change. It's directly impacting land use change, biodiversity, the active phosphorus and nitrogen, and climate change. And agriculture also is affecting indirectly all of these other criteria, so you can think of them as measures of health of the planetary system. We are at a moment in our history that it's very clear that the way we eat threatens the foundation of our collective well-being. And this is no surprise. This has been being discussed at least for the last 60 years or so, really even longer than that. This being that agriculture is creating harms that even as we are doing our best to feed ourselves, we are also threatening the well-being of communities, both our own and those around the world. So after 40, 50 years of discussion, there's good consensus in the international agriculture community that there is a need for a paradigm shift, a major transformation in the way that we feed ourselves, in the way that we teach agriculture, in the way that we do agricultural research. This is really not contested any longer. What is contested is how we get there. What kinds of changes do we need to make to achieve this transformational change in the food system? And so in 2012, the UN Sustainable Development Division for Sustainable Development convened a group of stakeholders, and they chose these stakeholders very carefully. They represented the major diverging worldviews on solutions. And these stakeholders included groups representing policy and trade, sustainable livelihoods, environmental sustainability, and agribusiness. So you can imagine getting that group of people into the room, and their goal was to find consensus on ways forward. How could those very different kinds of groups, what would they think about, how could they come together and decide on some consensus? And the good news is that they actually came up with 9 steps, actions, that this entire group agreed were important for achieving this paradigm shift. And I just want to briefly talk about each one. The first is that we need to shift our emphasis from industrial systems to healthy, high-yielding ecosystems as the basis for food production. And to recognize that there really is no conflict between high-yielding and high yields and healthy ecosystems. And in fact, those two go hand in hand. And we need to change education, research policy, and food policy to recognize that. The second is that we need to support small and mid-sized farmers. Small and mid-sized farmers operating small and mid-sized farms. It's so funny I made that mistake. It drives me crazy when people do that. We're not trying to help the little, the small farmers. At any rate, we need to be encouraging, investing in research and support for small and mid-sized operations. And particularly, we need to be supporting women farmers, because women are really, as a group, feed the world. And they need equal access to land, to education, and to financial resources. We also need to be investing in appropriate technology. It's very important that farmers of all sizes, but particularly small, and farmers operating small and mid-sized operations have access to culturally appropriate technologies that work in their own ecological conditions and socioeconomic context. Absolutely need to deal with food waste. Right now, it's estimated that globally, we waste between 30 and 40% of all the edible food produced on the planet. Lots of harms associated with this waste, not least that it's driving climate change. In fact, it's estimated that if food waste was a country, it would rank third as the highest global emitter of greenhouse gases behind the US and China. Another perspective that was agreed among this whole group was that we need to be thinking about food systems as whole systems. To not use these disciplinary lenses that Joshua was talking about that happens in economics. It's absolutely happening right in agriculture, education, and research as well. We need to start thinking about the food system as a whole. We need to have trained graduates who have the capacity to step back from the system and ask questions like, what is the purpose of this system, and are we achieving those purposes? We need to start using tools like life cycle analysis and look at the sustainability, harms, and benefits of the system as a whole. And we also need to change how we evaluate success of this system. In particular, this group agreed that we need to move away from yield or volume of production as the pinnacle of success for this system and move towards nutrition or human nutrition as a major goal of this system. We need to, the private sector is growing in importance in food system governance, and we need to recognize that and also, and support food businesses that develop sustainable solutions that include public good in their, as a measure of their business success. And we need to support them, we need to acknowledge them and raise awareness that businesses can do well by doing good. And finally, we need to adapt and develop the university education and research system. And there have been concerns and criticisms both within and outside of the university systems, the agricultural colleges, for more than 40 years, that the colleges were slowly losing relevance. That the kinds of questions they were asking and the kinds of graduates that they were preparing were not prepared to be able to address these complex questions that face agriculture today. The most likely engine of transformation, this necessary paradigm shift in agriculture, would be the land grant system of colleges. This is a network of agriculture colleges that were funded by the federal government in the US and were established about 150 years ago. The initial focus of this network of higher education was to develop local and regional capacity for innovation and also to focus on local and regional needs. But over time, the system has changed focus to national and international needs, and particularly has focused on the needs of agribusiness. This system is widely credited for driving the industrial transformation of the food system during the 20th century. But as the harms of this system became more obvious, calls for changes to this system increased. However, the land-grant system has mostly resisted the interest in and desire for more sustainable food system research and development, education, and ecological agriculture, and other alternatives to the industrial food system. And so this growing interest has been addressed by different kinds of actors who have moved into the agriculture research and education space. So one such actor is farmers. So farmers, very early on, recognized that the land grants were no longer serving their needs, and they started their own farmer-directed, farmer-led networks, social networks of research and education. And this is just one example from Malawi, but you can find examples all over the world of farmer-led research. Another major entrance into ag and food research has been the nonprofits or civil society, particularly agricultural and social justice sorts of nonprofits. And they move into communities and usually working in collaboration with farmers and others in the food system. They develop more ecological or sustainable systems. And recent research has shown that this type of community-based collaboration actually has a lot of benefits. One of them, one of the benefits is broad, positive livelihood outcomes. Another is the kinds of technologies and practices that are innovated in these social networks are very well adapted for local ecological and socioeconomic conditions. And the third is that these projects and programs absolutely build innovation capacity within the local community. So lots of benefits to this type of networking. Another group that has moved into the ag and food space is nonprofits who are devoted to training beginning farmers in ecological farming practices, in whole farm management, in holistic decision-making, sustainability, assessment, and those sorts of skills that farmers who are going to be successful need to use in the 21st century. This is an example of just one program in the US. It's called Farm Beginnings. It's grown tremendously in the last 15 years. It started out as a local innovation in ag education in, I believe, Minnesota, and it's now spread to about 16 states, and they have graduated something along the lines of 15,000 graduates, new farmers, since they started. The other major entrance in food and ag research new actors have been the non-land grant universities, in particular liberal arts at colleges and universities. And as this demand grew within students and the general public for more sustainable food systems, for the opportunity to reflect, to examine, to ask questions of the food system, and this demand was not being met in the land grants, the liberal arts universities and other non-land grant universities stepped in and created all kinds of different programs, many of them oriented around food, most of them being systems-related, systems thinking kinds of programs, and many of them also focused more on the consumer end of the food system. And I just want to finish up by giving you just two examples of what I believe are the two of the most innovative programs in the universities right now on the planet. The first is the Agro Ecology program that's been developed at the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. This has been developed over 20 years, and it's they've basically flipped the whole model of education from focusing on content to focusing on the individuals, the students that they're developing. And we've heard a lot today about the importance of developing ethics, developing values in young people, developing leadership skills, and you're gonna hear the same thing here. So the agroecology program, this agroecology program has oriented their entire education around this idea of critical landscape. So they put the students out into the communities around the college, and they first teach them to observe, to record, to reflect on what they're seeing, and how to dialogue and develop questions about the system that they are engaging in. Another aspect that's very innovative, so what's innovative about the critical landscape is that prior to learning any content in agriculture, the students are just put out and asked to observe and bring their observations back to the classroom. Another innovative aspect of this program is that it's incredibly place-based, and it's also a long-term experiential approach to agricultural education. It's important that I clearly let you know that this is not an add-on, this is not an extra class on top of their normal curriculum. This is the heart of their curriculum. They spend a lot of time working on building skills of communicative learning. How do I observe? How do I report what I just observe? How do I share what I have observed with others? How do I develop questions and dialogue? How do I vision in community? So lots of work done on a collaborative level, and not just with the students, but with the community members that they're working with. Their focus is to develop, they're educating change leaders. They're educating tomorrow's change leaders. They are graduating students or young people who have a full suite of skills that allow them to both understand the ecology of food systems, understand how to look at and study those food systems using systems science kinds of tools, sustainability assessment, resilience assessment, but they're also graduating students who can go into community, are effective collaborators, and effective change agents within that community. We do have one land grant in the US that has adopted this full model of experiential learning, and that is the College of Agriculture, Urban Sustainability, and Environmental Sciences, or CAUSES, at the University of the District of Columbia. This is a completely urban land grant. It's the only urban land grant in the US. And they very recently completely restructured their program to make the city their learning platform. And just like the agroecology program at the Norwegian University, they have developed a whole system that develops the whole student, develops change agent capacity, systems thinking capacity, but they're doing it in an urban environment. This is an example of a green roof that's been built on the campus, and this is the largest food-producing green roof in DC. It's producing food as well as insectary plantings, so they're supporting pollinators, and that they use rainwater that's collected from the campus landscape to produce this food. They also have plans for a network of urban farms. The very first one has just been established in the last year or so. It's the East Capitol Urban Farm. These urban farms are going to be places they've been conceived of as places for the community to gather, to ask questions about the food system, to learn how to produce food, and also places for their students, the UDC students, to do collaborative research with students from different disciplines and also with the community. The farm, sorry, I wanted to let you know, the farm is about 3 acres, and it includes both research areas, walking paths, exercise areas, playgrounds, and very soon we'll begin to produce fish and vegetables in an aquaculture setup in a greenhouse. The most recent addition to UDC's program is the Mobile Certified Kitchen, also known as the food truck. And so this is now going to allow the students studying nutrition and the health sciences to be able to come into the urban farm and also move around the city, giving lessons in food preparation and in nutrition. So it's bringing in the health sciences now into this program. So at the heart of these programs, UDC's program, the Norwegian University's program, and many other programs around the world, at the heart is a total transformation of what we teach and how we teach to prepare the agriculturalists of the future. These programs move from teaching an industrial science, disciplinary science-based curriculum to an ecological curriculum, so viewing the food system as a social ecological system. And they've moved from this teacher-oriented, content-oriented approach to teaching to much more student-centered, participatory, experiential kind of a systems thinking curriculum that can prepare these students to meet these unprecedented challenges that you've been hearing about all day. And a really nice aspect of moving the classroom into the community, I think, is that also invites the community in to becoming part of the solution to these challenges that we face that have been created by agriculture and food systems. And it gives us all a role in cultivating a sustainable and resilient food future. Thank you.